awakening. Have you felt it? You are listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie. Great Grand Rising, everyone. Great Grand Rising, and welcome to Dark Matter Radio. This is your host, Ronnie McLean under Thunder, and I am glad that you are here with me today so that we can discuss something that's extremely important of our people, no matter who you may claim yourself to be. Earlier today, I read a few posts and a few things came back with some of my, not only Facebook, but some of the YouTube documentaries that I put out, and threatening me, saying that I need to remove some of this evil that I got on the information that I'm putting out, or else they're going to be calling in extra forces to extricate me, all this other type stuff. And then there was another brother out there. I don't know if this other guy with the YouTube video was dealing with the stuff that happened down there in Washington with the Hebrew Israelites. And as everyone knows, I am not a Hebrew Israelite. Never was a Hebrew Israelite. And I did study with them, because I did study with the Muslims. I did study with the Catholics. I did study with Voodoo. I did study Zoroastrianism. I studied a lot, and that's when I got my third degree in ministry and religious studies. That was all part of the education process. The other part that is going to have to be addressed is that was really, it was really kind of surprising, and I shouldn't really be upset at this point in time. But the Petentatory Code states that we, as people who are in a supremacist system, should never publicly downgrade, go after, and try to destroy other people of the same quote-unquote racial makeup, such as yourself. And I feel that was done in a very, very belligerent way today, as my name was linked in with a guy named Hemat. And I won't talk about Hemat on the radio. I'll talk about Hemat when we go out and meet people face to face, and people ask questions and stuff like that. But I was linked in the same conversation with him, doing the same kind of thing. I was linked in as being a pimp, pimping the people. Linked into not having anything, no education or anything else like that. Really disturbing. Really disturbing languages. I was referred to as a nigger. And again, these are supposed to be leadership. This is supposed to be leadership of our people. And there's people commenting, I hear you, brother, and this, that, and the other thing. Very disturbing, right? Very disturbing, because as we go out into the airways and we present ourselves to the public, and especially if you are supposed to be a leader, one who's not supposed to be against violence, against wars, and all this other type stuff. And his whole entire thing about decolonization, that it was a farce. And his whole entire thing about decolonization is that it's ridiculous, it's impossible, it ain't never going to happen. And, just the tonality of that, you need an army to decolonize, you need land, you need this, you need that. You need a whole bunch of things that, in order for that to work, and that anybody who's following anything that's even remotely looking at decolonization is a fool, and it's just getting ripped off by niggas out there who don't know what they're talking about, who ain't got nothing, who ain't got no family, and family members don't get them. Their families all messed up, And I took that he was referring to my family was messed up. My family is a very strong, proud family, and I don't talk about them because I don't want them out in the forefront. One of the reasons why I don't go on major radio stations, why I started Dark Matter Radio, is so then that way I can reach the people on a term that is not going to be in the system airwaves, right? Not along with what you would call the bouye and all those kinds of things, and not being paid by or paid off by or being part of their system, right? I mean, we have to do a lot of things within the system in order for us to be able to get out, but I'm not looking for that kind of notoriety. So when people say, why is certain things taking so long? I say, well, because I'm not out there on WBLS. I'm not out there on KISS FM or anything like that. I mean, I did a radio program, a local radio program over there in Memphis. I did a local radio program in Florida. I did a local radio program that was based out of North Carolina. And a few other radio programs that were based out of Montgomery. And so, if you're looking for, those kinds of things, and, you'll get that. But also what comes with it is the selling of your soul, and that's something that I'm not going to do. Right? And that's one of the first things I said about that. But the way that I was being referred to was just absolutely ridiculous. And his alternative was, we need to stay away from all this decolonization stuff because it's fool's gold. We need to just, farm our own lands because these got, thousands and thousands of acres, I guess, of land that can feed just about everybody. That's, what they're claiming. And that we should look at UNDRIP and ADRIP as the protocols upon which we as beings of people should be able to follow. Now, UNDRIP, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I want you to hear the words that I'm using, because as we go on with this conversation today, it's going to be extremely important for us to understand the words that are now being used as opposed to the words that were being used before 1968, right? And I believe that one was passed in 2007. And then the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So the American, you hear the words that I'm saying, the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I believe that one was brought up and passed in sometime 2016, 2017. And all these are UN declarations. And again, when you come down to the UN, you have to understand something that's just part of the process. So when I talk about decolonization is only a part of the process. It's not the whole entire process. So when you look at these things, right, when you look at these things, you have to really take a look at the new wording that they're using, right? And that new wording that they're using is indigenous, right? And indigenous means what? It means that you are and always have been a part of the land. Simple. So when you get this guy calling me a nigga, a pimp, and all this other type of stuff, and I'm pimping people, and but you don't follow these idiots because they'll lead you down a brick road. I want you to hear the words that I'm saying. I have no problems with anybody coming after me, asking me questions or anything else like that, and I wish he did. But when you take a look at what people are saying, really take a look at what people are saying and how they're saying it. Tells you everything you need to know about the direction that they're going in and how the world actually looks at them. right? And we have to really be careful with that kind of a mindset, because the world will look at as the same if we're following behind people such as those. Like, when Al Sharpton and Tawana Brawley and all that other type stuff, it was an embarrassment, right? You got this new guy right now who was a major player in Empire, running around the place, getting himself all beat up and everything else like that. That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Right? And when you have people running around, downing your own brothers and sisters, and using words like nigger and curse words and saying all kinds of stuff, referring to the people of your own people, it's you got to be careful. Right? You have to be careful, and this is the reason why you listen to the words. Right? You listen to the demeanor, anger. Right? Now, the brother said that, it can never happen because we don't have an army. We don't have an army. We don't have anything to feed our people. I want you to listen to this now, because this is important. We don't have the military might to be able to decolonize an uprising, a revolution. I want you to listen to me now. We don't have any of those kinds of things. So the main thing I want you to hear is all the different connotations and things and words that they're using in order for them to incite anger, disbelief, and dissension amongst our own people. When I started this thing way back in the 80s, it was called the Right to Self-Determination, based on the Decolonization Act of 1960, right? And a very strong, soulful person came to me and said that one of the things that you're going to probably have to get through first, because of all the people who are going to be, jealous of losing their power and losing their money and all this other type of stuff, will be your very own people. They'll be the ones that we try to stop you from getting your own right to self-determination. So, and I've always talked not only as an individual, but I've always talked as collective. Because as individuals, we have to make up our own mind in terms of who and what we are as beings of people. And then as a collective, we have to take those ideals and move ourselves forward and out of the system for our own right to self-determination as a collective of people. Right? And that's why, the 1960 Decolonization Declaration that was signed off on was so very important. And the reason why you have to watch out for these new ones that are coming up, because now what happens is that there is no real distinction between you and anyone else. See, that's the reason why you have to be extremely cautious about people being desperate to get something done and to do whatever is necessary to have some sort of gain and make it feel like you're getting someplace, when in actuality and the reality is that you got no place at all. No place at all. We're also going to talk about the Civil Rights Act, which goes along with the American Indian Protection Act of 1968. We're also going to talk about the difference between the American Indian and the Native American, because that's extremely important. And then we're going to go back to these alternatives, these new alternatives, the ones that were done here in the 21st century, which is the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP, right? That was passed September 13th, I believe, 2007. And then the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Talk about that a little bit. And I believe, again, that was passed on June 15th, 2016. So very quickly, I want to just touch on the civil rights movement, right? The civil rights and all the things that happened with that, and I should probably start back with Reconstruction, right? Because Reconstruction was one of the first things that they've done, and they passed some civil rights acts too during that time as well, right? Before in the late 1800s. So with Reconstruction, what they did was set people free, so they claim. Gave them a part in the Constitution, so they claim. And that part in the Constitution mentioned nothing about anything of any particular group of people, just slavery, enumerated rights, right? In order for you to be able to become a citizen of the United States. And then that word citizen in itself actually means, when you read the legal definition for it, that the government uses, citizen itself, basically, in a nutshell, means that it does not apply to any of the indigenous beings, never was meant to apply to any of the indigenous beings, the Constitution anyway, never meant it to apply to any indigenous being, Aboriginal beings of the United States, and only meant to apply to the white population in the United States. And that every state, as an individual country or individual state within the United States as a country, has a right to grant citizenship to anyone that they please. So, when it comes down to the Dred Scott decision, the Dred Scott case, which was never overturned, and you come down to your definition of what it means to be a citizen of the United States, you'll find out that you have very little rights whatsoever as a citizen. That's the first thing. Right? You're a citizen of the corporate United States through the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law means that every country, yes, every state in the Union has to treat you with the same governance and laws that they treat everyone else. But you are not necessarily a citizen and cannot be a citizen of any state. Right? So, you keep that in mind. And so with all this Reconstruction stuff and trying to send us back to Africa, and that's what that whole thing was really about. It was about, trying to get us to go somewhere that we didn't really belong to begin with. That's where Liberia was created and all that other type stuff. Excuse me, and they sent people over there. Next thing you know, a civil war broke out over there because the Aboriginal indigenous people over there in on that land said that the new people that came over, they weren't indigenous to that land. They were foreigners, and they needed to go back to their country, which is now called America. Look it up. Anything that I say, look it up. Just take a look. Right? So during that time, who was catching all the hell? A lot of the hell was being caught of our people, right? Our people, So, we had the Trail of Tears, and the Trail of Tears was all about the Buffalo Soldiers, which again was carbon-based beings, keeping the lanes open and fighting all the other Aboriginals and defeating them, destroying them, and rooting them out. Doing things that the American government actually couldn't do. And that's who protected the people on the trail going out north, who opened up the West. Right? They opened up the West. So the very people that they gave guns to and stuff like that for a long period of time never turned their guns on the oppressors. So these are the kind of, and that's important because that's the kind of mentality that we're dealing with today. Right? That's the mentality that we're dealing with today. And the mentality is that as long as I can get something out of this system, then I'm okay. As long as I am not so mentally traumatized, and I can keep myself underneath the radar and keep as many people as I can underneath the radar with me, we'll be okay. But you'll never be free. You'll never have a real right to self-determination. Ever. Because you have never separated yourself from, one, the supremacist system that you're in. Some people call it the white supremacist system. I call it the supremacist system that you're in. And two, you have absolutely no chance of getting out of the structural abuse system and structural violence system that the world is encapsulated in. So this is why decolonization becomes so very important. But then when you get down to the civil rights, you have the Civil Rights Act. And the Civil Rights Act, again, from 1909 all the way up into the 60s, covered all that stuff because you had the Jim Crow era that forced a lot of people not to be able to reach their real heights, and all the Ku Klux Klan and all that other type stuff, right? So no matter what happened, they were always being controlled in any of these kinds of things that they were trying to give them in terms of being connected with this government. Always being controlled. Educated. The education system came from them. Right? And this is why so many people are so messed up now, and a lot of people just waking up or just getting into the knowledge of understanding where they actually really came from. How the slave trade was actually really developed, and we are at war. We are at war. And they use their military on us or government forces on us at will because they have a right to, because they know that they are still at war. The war with the Aboriginal, indigenous, and those who came over here from Africa, whether or not they were recycled indigenous or people from Africa itself, are at war. They're at war with these people. Killed them by the hundreds of thousands per day, and in one account I had read in one of my college classes was informed that over 100 million people was slaughtered in this land. And they tried to say smallpox and just that and the other thing, but a lot of it was done through military expenditures. John Smith, when he came over here, claiming that he was the first. He wasn't the first one. The first people that tried to land on these islands, they were obliterated because they weren't supposed to be here. But that's a story of another day. But John Smith was a military man. Anybody that came over here, they called them explorers. That was code word for military conquerors. They were to come over here and wipe us out. They knew where they were coming when they came over here. So decolonization is the undoing of colonialism. Now that's a big word, colonialism, because they say, well, was America really a colonial power? Well, the thing is that you have to understand that the French, the British, the Spaniards, and a whole horde of other European, African, Chinese countries were colonizers. And that's who were over here in the very beginning. They were colonizing us. Their people were colonizing us and slaughtering us. Terribly bad. And they weren't nice about it either. It was vicious. It was vicious. Right? So when the Americans came into effect, 1776, what they did, they took over the role of colonizer by defeating and taking out their colonizers. And they became the new colonizers and also military people who kept the war going. Because George Washington said that they cannot, this war is not about the the indigenous people, the Indians. This war that we're fighting is so that we can be free. Nothing to do with them or the slaves. Right? So just remember that, right? So the United States took over the role as the colonizers, and also they were conquerors in war. I don't have to go through what happened with, the Cali people. They had an empire that ranged all the way down through almost all the way down into what you now call South America, all the way throughout the islands. The Powhatan had a area of almost, they said, 10,000 square miles. And if you've seen a picture of the Powhatan, Pocahontas' father, he was what you now would call a quote-unquote black man. So it is the undoing of colonialism, later being the process whereby a nation establishes and maintains the domination over one or more of the territories of that land, right? So that's colonialism. The concept particularly applies to the dismantlement during the second half of the 20th century of the colonial empires established prior to World War I throughout the world. However, decolonization not only includes the complete removal, let me say that again, the complete removal of the domination of the non-indigenous forces within the geographic space and different institution of the colonizers. But it also includes intellectual decolonization from the colonizers, ideas that made the colonized feel inferior. See, the United Nations Special Committee on Decolonization has stated that in the process of decolonization, there is no alternative. Let me say that again. There is no alternative to the colonizer but to allow a process of self-determination. Something that I was speaking way back in the 80s. I'm no Johnny-come-lately to this stuff. But it practices decolonization may involve either, listen to this, nonviolent revolution or national liberation wars by pro-independent groups. It may be internal, intramural, or involve the intervention of foreign powers acting individually or through international bodies such as the United Nations. That's a mouthful. But clearly, there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing any reading. And I tell everybody, don't just listen to the words that I say, study it for yourself. But don't have somebody out there who's going to be yelling, screaming, cursing, calling people niggas and all kinds of other stuff, and not really have an understanding of text, of the material. Although the examples of decolonizations can be found as early as the writings of Themistocles, there have been several particularly active periods of decolonizations in modern time. This includes the breakup of the Spanish Empire in the 19th century, of the Germans, Austro-Hungarians, Ottoman Empire, the Russian empires, followed World War I, of the British, French, Dutch, Japanese, because they did a lot of colonizing over there in China, Portuguese, they did a lot of colonization on the islands, Belgians, they also did a lot of colonizing and also helped colonize the Americas. And the Italians, colonial empires following World War II. And of the Soviet Union, they were decolonized, successor to the Russian Empire. And guess what? That was done in 1991. So when these people begin to start telling you that this is not possible, it's impossible, that it doesn't happen, can't happen, will not happen, they have absolutely no clue of what they're talking about. One of the things that I have to, I'll tell you this, is that when I give some of these talks that I give, a lot of them I give a lot of positivity talks, right? And I mention a thing about McDonald's. So the owners, the original owners of McDonald's started this wonderful concept, but they were only able to bring it but so far. And they had to bring in other people in order to make McDonald's what it is today. In other words, there are a lot of people out there with a very limited mindset. They can't see so far. They don't have a vision to get to where you need to go to. And if this is your leaders, and this is the leaders that you're aspiring to, then you have to always wonder why your community doesn't get better, why your community doesn't heal, why the services don't get to where it needs to get, why there always seems to be some sort of a male domination attitude, and even a female domination attitude. Why things don't, why there's always talk about the problem, but never talk about the solution. And then when they do give a solution, it's a solution that's going to benefit them and be comfortable as they are. I'm talking about getting uncomfortable here. Right? Because a lot of our leaders back in the 60s, and even since and after slavery, and even before when we were in war, and again, I don't like that word slavery. What we are prisoners of war that were forced to be in forced labor camps. They called plantations. They turned that into a slave type situation in the 1600s. When they finally defeated the Powhatan Empire, Pocahontas' father, and really his brother, because his brother fought way until he was in his 90s. But when Pocahontas' father, when they killed him, they said that he died of a broken heart. You can't really trust these people, but I read in a lot of different types of things that they killed him. And when they killed him, they began to enslave the people. So this is the thing about decolonization, and the thing about the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act came in two forms. You have the main body Civil Rights Act, and then Article 2 of it. Right? When you read Article 2, it talks about the American Indian. It talks about the American Indian, not the Native American, and it goes on at length to talk about their rights of self-determination, their right of self-governance, their rights. It's already in the acts of the American law that they refuse to make it part of the Constitution, because they know if they made it part of the Constitution, they would have to already give us everything that we need. But the thing is that what happened in the 60s, what happened as soon as this American Indian Act, as soon as the Civil Rights Act of 1968 actually passed, what they did, and again you have to go to Phoenix Moon and listen to her YouTube channel, and she'll break it down really well as to how, as soon as all this stuff began to happen, you lost it as soon as we got it. That's how fast we lost it. Because as soon as that went into effect, what they started doing was putting up black. They started talking about black power. Black power, Angawa. They started talking about, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm African. And then you had those guys that make up the dashiki. The dashiki was a print from some king over there in Africa that they used to wear over there. It was a print. Canvas. And he came over here, he made it a shirt. Dashiki, that only means shirt. That's all it means. And they marketed it and got everybody wearing dashikis. As the whole world laughed at you as you gave up all your rights. I mean, when you read the Civil Rights Act and Article 2 and the other related parts to it, you'll be amazed as to what it really actually says. Just like you will be amazed of the Sherman Order 15 that was signed as an executive order by Lincoln, giving the original indigenous beings of this country their land rights back. That's what the 40 acres was all about. The mule came into effect when Sherman said, we're going to help you till the land. But they had written up an executive order, whereas the American military was going to protect the people until they were able to protect themselves, and they had every right to govern themselves, and they were giving every indigenous person 40 acres for them to be able to till on their own. That's what happened there. They lost that real quick as soon as they killed Lincoln and brought in that other bastard, and he overturned it and gave it right back to the Southerners, the land. Yeah, land going all the way up from North Carolina all the way down to Florida, reaching out all the way into the hills and the areas of Georgia. Virginia, they had a lot of land, coastal land too. They also made a provision as they had certain water rights, and that would be protected by the U.S. Navy. So the Civil Rights Act in 1968, which included the American Indian Federation Protection Act for the American Indians, the now called black people, thank you, now called African American people, thank you, Jesse Jackson, Afro-American people, thank you, we changed our identity. And see, the Decolonization Act says that you have a right to choose whatever identity you want to have. And you can do it individually, and you do it as a group. So we did it individually, and we also did it as a group. We became black people. We became African Americans, conquered people of Americas. And we lost all of our rights in the Civil Rights Act. And the difference because it wasn't the Native Americans that they were talking about, because back then they were Native Americans. Now today, leadership out there talking about accepting the words of indigenous for everyone, right across the board, making no distinction between you and them. See, and this is how it goes, because it's another way of them manipulating and mind gaming you in this system to where you have absolutely no power whatsoever. Right? So the American Indian has federally protective activities. We're protected. Right? If we were stuck with the Civil Rights Act, we were protected, and we would have been able to slide into our individual community nations and formulate our own economics, our own economic situation in in North America. We had a right to do that. The Native Americans are federally regulated. They're underneath them. They were to protect us, just like they were going to protect us with Sherman Order number 15. 40 acres and a mule stuff. We were going to be protected. So throughout history, they know what they're doing in terms of what's going to happen to us. So when you get down to this, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and that's UNDRIP, and then you get to the American. I have a real serious problem with that, because now what they're doing is specifically bringing out everyone who is in the Americas. And everyone in the Americas it goes for. So on June 16, after nearly 30 years of advocacy, the negotiation of the Organization of American States adopted the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The OAS is a regional intergovernmental organization of 35 member countries of the Americas. It's a governmental thing, including the United States. The American Declaration offers specific protection for indigenous people. So when the United States is included in that, a colonial power who took over for a colonial power, who is at war with its people still here in North America, right? Mexico, Central America, so-called Central America, and South America, and the Caribbean. It lumps them all in there. They get them all. It affirms the right of self-determination, rights to education, health, self-government, culture, lands, territories, natural resources, and it includes provisions that address a particular situation of indigenous people in the Americas, including protections for those living in voluntary isolation and those affected by states' international armed conflict. Article 7 of the Declaration states gender equality. So again, when this brother was attacking me, what he is doing is saying that everything you see out there, dealing with all of this gender equality stuff, New York State has about 55 to 60 different type of genders. He's approving all this, and this is what he wants to bring to your communities. These kind of things he wants to bring to your community. See, it's not just one thing. It's not just talking out of your you know what and making things sound good. You got to take it all for what it is. And I'm not against gay people or this, that, or the other thing. I'm against the agenda. I'm against the agenda of GMO foods, cutting down our forests, shaling for oil. I'm against nuclear power plants running all that crap into our rivers. So, you have to understand that, there's a lot that goes along with this. So what it says, it includes the commitment that states, governments, countries shall adopt necessary measures in conjunction with indigenous peoples to prevent and eradicate all forms of violence and discrimination, particularly against the indigenous women and children. So what they are saying is that you are in the United States, you're going to be part of the United States, the United States is going to give you your indigenousness, and then they're going to work with you, right? They're going to work with you so then that way you can be at peace. You're still in their system. You're still under their governance. And if you don't think you're at war, you're a fool, because they can come around and still kill you anytime they want, because this doesn't end the war. It doesn't end the war. And if you listen early into the show, it was about citizenship, the Constitution, all of these things. Go into the war and why they're able to kill you and why they're able to get off. court rulings that were never overturned by the Supreme Court, was upheld. So if you're talking about a right to self-determination, you're talking about a right to self-determination inside of the United States government. The very government that Andrew Jackson went out there to pillage, kill, rape, and murder. The same thing George Washington did. The same thing Abraham Lincoln was doing. He was doing it too. Changed his mind to see what was going on with the Civil War. He didn't care anything about you. None of these presidents cared anything about you, because if you did, your situation would change. And none of your leadership cared anything about you, because if you did, they wouldn't have sold your soul down the drain. And your communities be a lot better right now. I wouldn't be up here talking to you right now. So when somebody calls Ronnie McLean a nigger because he wants his people to be free, there's something wrong with that person. And that's why I talk about structural abuse. Because we're in an abusive mindset. An abusive mindset. And anybody that's ever been in an abusive relationship, you know daggone well that you cannot get better by living with your abuser. You also know that you cannot allow your abuser to be able to have the authority to give you the remedy to your sickness. And that's what this says right here. That's what this says right here. It includes a commitment that states, countries, shall adopt the necessary measures in conjunction with indigenous peoples to prevent and eradicate all forms of violence and discrimination, particularly against the indigenous women and children. The hell with you men. Particularly. Now, it also says that the American Declaration is a comprehensive regional human rights instrument, and it will become one of the most important instruments of the inter-American human rights system. So I already told you that you are in a supremacist system. A lot of that is worldwide, but you're also encapsulated in the structural abuse system, which is worldwide, and it ties you deeper into this. So what you're asking, and people, people really need to understand what all this stuff means. I don't even have to read any more of this, because this is a whole bunch of bullcrap right there. And that one is the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. So when you put it into that, you accept that as part of what you're going by, you are now making yourself just the same as all the natives and all the foreigners that are over here. Because now they're all indigenous. All of them are indigenous. So when they want to have a claim right to your land, they can have a claim right to your land. And they can go through the state that they're living in to get that claim right to your land. And if history serves us any better, because I don't know if these people are really paying attention to history. The one that called me a nigger will become a nigger himself when he understands that his people ain't got no more land and that land's been given over to somebody else. Now what? Because he says, I want to protect my family. I want to protect my people. We ain't got no army. You want to know something? We don't need an army because we're not revolting. This is not a revolt. See, you got your mind so conditioned that everything's got to be about violence, violence, violence. Everything's got to be about violence. There's a lot of places on this earth and a lot of these countries that were able to get what they needed to get through nonviolent means. And they were in a revolutionary situation. And then there's a lot of revolutionary situations where they have to fight. We're not at that stage. We don't need a military. We're not trying to overthrow the United States government. Where is the mindset coming from? The mindset is coming from the programming that has been put in people's minds through television, radio, church, and desperation, ego. Gets the best of you, and then all of a sudden, you're trying to say, we got to arm ourselves and all that other type of stuff. You'll be a fool if you put a gun in your hand and go out there and try to fight the U.S. military. Ain't nobody telling you to do that. All those people over there in Chicago, the only reason why they got the guns is because the United States gave it to them. They don't make guns. They're not manufacturers of guns. Who do you think gave them those guns? They gave them those guns so they can turn on their own people and kill their people, so then that way they don't have to kill them themselves, so that they can get their organs. And when you start talking about, we need a military, all you're talking about is a civil war against your own people, doing just what the Buffalo Soldiers did to us. What you need is a constitution of commitment and organization in order for you to be able to put your people together, so then that way we can move forward. And what I'm seeing here now is a bunch of little churches that are popping up taking care of themselves. That ain't going to make it. We don't have much time. We don't have much time. The United States deficit, you got to talk about all this stuff. Instead of calling people niggas, bastards, and bitches. Excuse my language. Instead of talking about their family members, running them down like they're dogs. My family's a very high-wealth family. Talking about people ain't got nothing. All these people out there trying to rip other people off. They ain't got nothing. They ain't got nothing. I don't brag about my situation. My average salary a year is $150,000 a year. I have my own business. I'm converting all of that stuff that I was doing to uphold this society to go in to help my own people, to build our own society. Yeah, I'm at risk. And then when somebody tells me that the only nigga that can step up to them is somebody with a Bentley, is this the leadership that you got going in your community? This is what you're bringing into the UN? This is what you're bringing in to show the outside world that we can govern ourselves? Shameful. Shameful. Talking about we need to adopt these new concepts and forget about decolonization. What is decolonization? What is decolonization? How does it even happen? If you don't even know how it can even happen, well, why don't you shut your mouth up and do some studying? And that's anybody out there. Study the situation before you begin to start speaking about it, especially in public, because the public is watching. They're watching everything that we do. Everything that we do, they're watching. Now, like I said, the UN is not the end-all, the be-all. It is the decolonization process is a way for us to be able to organize our people so that we will be able to begin to start having a framework of a national effort, of a countrywide effort, so that we can begin to really start helping each other. It's never been done before. It's been done in organizations like the NAACP nationwide, Urban League nationwide. Right? And all these were created by, the people that are geared to bring you down, and the only people that lead them are the bourgeois, or the people of the high black elite. And none of these systems ever got you the help that you really need. Talking about, I ain't got nothing. I can't even help myself. I'm sacrificing everything in order for me to be able to do what they put inside of me. And who are they? The elders, the ancients, the souls that are speaking through me all throughout my life. I'm very passionate about this. They started speaking to me when I was about 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And then people are going to bring up their criminal record about what they can do to people. And this is the kind of leadership that we're talking about. And that's why I said, the venting process will take care of itself. People, be careful, be careful, be careful. Don't give up your birth certificate. I'm not asking anybody to sign on into any kind of citizenship stuff. We ain't even at that, we're not even at that place yet. We are in the process of organizing and setting up community nations. And I call them community nations because you need to begin to start thinking that you have a right to self-determination on your own. We're not trying to bring down the American government or try to overthrow anything. Nobody's telling you to give up your Social Security card or anything else like that. Because, no, you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have nothing to go. And if you buy into this American Declaration of Rights Act of Indigenous People, you really won't have anywhere to go. You better hope that they build that wall real quick, because before you know it, you're going to be like those people over there in California where all the Mexican people come in there and take up all your land and all your housing and stuff like that. It's happening in New York. There's a lot more foreigners in New York taking away all the housing over there. They're taking the housing away in Baltimore. They're taking the housing away over there in Denver. Taking housing away over there in St. Louis. They're taking housing away from just about everywhere around in this country. Forcing people to live homeless. And then you're going to depend on a government that is geared and from the very onset to genocide you off the face of this earth to give you recognition. Give you recognition. And then you're going to talk about, well, I can recognize myself. Yeah, you can recognize yourself, but then you talk about following their law. Being up under them. Now, I know that, people went to church. You can't serve two masters or else you're going to love one and hate the other. And if you're telling your people to do that, then they're in some sad shape. And this is the reason why we're in sad shape now. Because we have no organization. And people stop running around talking bad about anybody out there trying to do something to uplift themselves. And I'm not talking bad about this brother. I'm only mentioning about what he mentioned about me in terms of decolonization. Decolonization throws these people off your land. They don't have a choice to go with it. Period. If we can get to that point and hit that home run, you don't have to go into their court systems. You don't have to go into their jails. You don't have to have them coming in there with child abuse investigators and taking your family members out of your house and bringing them to God knows where. And the next thing you know, you'll find that they either came out of their school or something like that, stuffed with tissue paper or newspaper inside their bodies with their organs gone. You want to love your family? Love the right to self-determination in the real way and making sure that you get up underneath your abuser instead of trying to stay underneath them. Because you are not meant to be underneath anyone. You are the progenitors of this land. Do you know that history has taught you that they know that it was the original indigenous beings from this land of North America that went over there and made Egypt great? It wasn't until maize went over there, not corn, maize went over there, over where? Over to Ethiopia, not Africa, because there was no such thing as an Africa or conquered people at that time. It was the people with burnt faces. And they went over there, and that's when Memphis started to rise up. Out of the sands, or out of whatever was over there at that particular time. It was because they learned the agricultural processes of maize. This is proven in archaeology history. Take a class or two. People talk about Indian law and all this other type stuff. We have to be able, if we are self-sufficient people, have a right to self-determination, we need to go back into the system we came out of with some modifications to make sure whatever happened never happens again. That our women will never be able to be put in the same situation as that again. Not depending on the world that doesn't like you in the first place and always wanted you to be genocided out of here. The only reason why you're still here is because they need your genetics, they need your chromosomes, they need your DNA in order for them to stay alive. We are entering into a period where, yes, this world is getting hotter, the atmosphere is changing. We are right now carbon 12 beings, 666. I believe it's 6 neurons, 6 electrons, 6 protons, which makes us carbon. We have real carbon inside of us. We're carbon 12 beings. We have more neuronic receptors to place our carbon and what you call melanin all throughout our bodies. I believe we have 12. Most other races only have about 4, 5. Dr. Layla Africa brought that out really plainly. Really plainly. You are meant to be governors and gods of this world, and that's exactly how they looked at you when you were over here. This is the reason why the Carthaginian Empire put a moratorium way back in the hundreds, saying that there is nobody allowed to come over to the Western Ethiopian area to live or do anything, because they seen what was happening through the hundreds of years of trade that they're doing with these people. You know, people going over there, living, taking advantage, and not doing the right thing over there. So they put a worldwide moratorium. I believe that's the reason why Carthage was constantly attacked, because they were protecting their people. And I believe that that whole area over there was a province that was made up of the people over here in what they call the Atlantean area. Read the Antediluvian World and all these other kinds of books like that. Read these books. You'll find out who and what you truly are as beings of people. And when you start talking about, you know, what is decolonization and stuff like that, read about it, because what happens is that this is the only way in their system that you can get the people who are warring with you off your land. We have to end the war. You are prisoners of war. You are on occupied territory in your own land. I don't care what you call yourself. You are at war. And that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Love your fellow brother. Love your fellow sister. Speak good about them. And if you have internal problems with them, call them up on the phone. Have a summit meeting like the summit meeting we're going to be having in March 21st down there in New Orleans to get together to talk about these kinds of things. To talk about developing a great grand council. Very proud, noble people are helping putting a lot of things together down there in New Orleans. Lots of good stuff that are going on everywhere that we're talking to people. We have a great leadership foundation that is developing, that is needing to get out there. And it is getting out there. So this is all I'm going to say for today. Just want to tell you, again, the decolonization, and people saying that this isn't going to happen. It happened with the American Revolution. It's impossible, can't even do it. Haitians were the first to revolt. Haitians were the first to uprise and get rid of what was now known then the biggest and largest and most powerful empire on earth, which was France, and then they had to do it again with the Britons. A whole lot of these places. I mean, you got a lot of places in here that went through the decolonization of, Africa had to decolonize, right? There was some decolonization in the Americas, talking about maybe South America and the Caribbean. Jamaica was decolonized. We can't decolonize? I'm a fool, a nigger, an idiot, a lousy, no good bastard, somebody who ain't got nothing, that can only step up to other people as long as I got a Bentley? Jamaica was decolonized, I believe it was in 1969, people. There's a lot of things that go with this, but I just wanted to let you know, right? And there's still countries, Caribbean countries, that are being decolonized today. Aruba, Tortola, right? A lot of these, Trinidad and Tobago. So we have to understand that, this is serious business. This is serious business. This is serious business. And decolonization is no joke. And being up underneath somebody else under these phony rights that they're giving out to all these other indigenous people that aren't really indigenous. And then we have our own leadership fighting against their own people, trying to get us to blend ourselves in with all other indigenous people. Because that's in the wording. Just because you sound smart don't mean that you are. Just because something sounds right doesn't mean that it is. This is the reason why almost 30 years and longer I've been studying this whole entire situation. If you got a better way, come out with it. Come out with it, because people have been waiting. People have been waiting. We've been in a situation of structural abuse for over 500 years. It is time for the war to end. It is time for us to be free. It is time for them to let us go. It is time for us to decolonize. It is time for us to put ourselves in a situation as to where we can have an enclosed system as to where we can protect our people and put them into the proper services so that they can begin the healing process, which is going to take an awful long time. And when you get people that are coming on the radio, music, and all that other type stuff, still calling their brothers niggers and derogatory stuff, talking about people's families and stuff like that, that's a sign of mental psychosis. And you got to understand, we all got a little bit of that. That's why we need to be in a place where we can actually have a system that is actually going to put us in a place as to where we can be spiritually, soulfully healed, mentally healed. Because when the adults all screwed up, the children are going to be all screwed up too. Because one teach the other. That's how all that mega slave stuff went around. So I just want people to understand that, it is time for us to move forward. It is time for us to think, think much, much more higher of ourselves than trying to emulate those who have emulated us. Yes, the Native Americans, no matter where they are in North, South, Central America, has emulated us. And then what they did, they put on more bling so they could be better than us. Look at the original, real pictures of indigenous Americans, and you can see that their dress is totally, totally different. Take a look at the picture of Pocahontas' father. Now, I know they didn't dress all the same all over the place, but they sure didn't dress like these Indians today. That Indian dress came around about the end of the 1700s, early 1800s. Take a look at your history. And I know, for God's sake, if I'm wrong with what I'm saying, you got Tomahawk, who will rip me apart. That's a smart brother right there. You got Kerry Davis, smart brother right there. He understands his stuff. You got Sister Correa. She'll tear me apart. Chief Ganesh, he'll tear me apart. Phoenix Moon, she knows her stuff. Rip me apart. So I can't get up here and start talking, nonsense. We have to have a higher level, a higher mentality of thinking in order for us to be able to put ourselves in a situation for us to be able to be healed. Male and female, children, elders. And we can only do that by us supporting ourselves. So when it comes down to reparations, I wanted to get this reparation thing in here real quick. When it comes down to reparations, understand something, all right? Reparations was here back in 1968 when they gave you everything that you needed to have in order for you to move on with yourself. You gave that up when you took on the personas of black and African Americans. Gave it up. You gave up your right to it. Now you're trying to get it back. That's what we're trying to do now, trying to get it back. So the first thing that we have to do, we have to invest in ourselves, invest in our communities, and support ourselves economically. Economically, right now, as a gross, our whole entire population, as it's stated right now, is worth $1,600,200,000,000. When you're talking about net, you're talking still at least $1,100,000,000,000 nationwide. So we're talking about decent, substantial money if we even put a fraction of that into ourselves to get ourselves to where we need to be. So when somebody says, oh, they're trying to rip off the community, let me tell you something. In this world, it takes money in order for you to get anything. You think that gas and that tractor that you're baling that hay with is free? When that tractor breaks, you're going to need some money to fix it. And if you plan on feeding a whole bunch of people, you're going to have to begin to start collecting some money from somewhere. And until that money is able to come in from the recompense, I don't call it reparations, I call it a recompense. We need to be able to support ourselves. We need, and doing this, it shows you that you're able to develop your own businesses. It shows you that you're able to develop your own industries. And then we have a right to begin to start hiring our own people outside of the mainstream. And see, that's the problem, because we're mainstream people. Mainstream people, what do I mean? The Italians have their own little niche. The Jews have their own little niche. I've walked in communities and interviewed people who've never spoken English for 30 years because they're in their own little niche. Hispanic, Russians, Italians. They don't need to because they don't operate mainly in the mainstream of society. Mainly in the mainstream of society. They don't operate that way. We, as quote-unquote black African Americans, indigenous now, we are still operating in the mainstream of society, and we got to get out of that. We have to get out of that. This is the reason why developing little community nations is so important, and developing little businesses are very, very important. And then putting up some sort of a logo or something like that in your store and in your houses, we all know who you're supporting. We all know where your money is going. And then once we're able to do that, we're able to make sure that our money rotates in our community a hell of a lot more. And then we don't have to be the lowest on the lowest of the totem pole when it comes to job creations and anything else like that, because we can create our own jobs. No, this ain't about bullshit. Let me tell you, nobody, the brother also said, you ain't got nothing. You ain't got nothing. When you're in jail, you ain't got nothing either. And guess what? We're all right now in jail. Consider yourself a prisoner of this abuse system. A prisoner. That's what you are. And as a prisoner, you really don't have any rights to do anything. So even if you did follow this American Declaration of everybody now is an indigenous people, you're still in the prison system. You're not out of it. And even if you did follow the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, you're still in the prison system. You're not out of it. You're still in occupied land. You're not out of it. They can do whatever they want to do to you. Black businessman in Black Wall Street. They can do whatever they want to you. That's what the punch bowls were all about. In Nance, there's a big famous one in Nance, where the peaches grow so big and so fat that they won't even eat them because they know where they got the fertilizer from. How many people died in there? Tens of thousands of people, and they have those all over the country. They'll do whatever they want to do to you when they want to do it, when it's time for them to do it, because if they need your land, they give it to somebody, some other now indigenous person, they'll give it to them. You'll still have no rights. We need to start using our words properly. And when we talk about language, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that don't know indigenous language. There's a lot of people out there that don't even know their indigenous history. And then you go and make fun of them? You talk down to them? Treat them just as bad as the people that are treating you in this prison system? Who the hell is anybody to go after anybody because they don't know what their original language is? Do you, the person out there who is damning their own people, know what the original language is? The original language? We are so far removed from our own history, we need our own historical council in order for us to be able to develop a proper canon of where we are and who we are as beings of people. Do you know what they found over there in the Grand Canyon? Do you know exactly how many mounds there are or were in just North America itself? No. You want to know why? Because they didn't tell you that information. So you can't regurgitate it because they didn't tell you. And if they did give you a number, you just regurgitate that information, give it to your people, and then, you say that that's the truth. But I'm telling you right now, as I get into the last of this, we are beings of people that are going for a cosmic change from a carbon-12 people to a carbon-7 people. And in order for us to get as many people as we can to be able to make the transition, we have to be in a place to where we can fix our souls, fix our spiritual energy, and fix our hearts, where the God particle is, the manifestation energy. We need to be able to, right now, in the wombs of all the women that are having babies right now, those babies are most likely being born as carbon-6 beings because of what's happening. We need to be able to press upon the system to get rid of all these shields that they're putting around this earth and stopping the chemtrails and all that other type stuff, so that we will be able to make the transition. They will be able to make the transition possibly. But it's up to us to make sure that we get as many people in a decent, peaceful situation as possible in order for them to be able to make this transition. They call it a super carbon 7 being or something like that. It's in your Bibles. It's in your Qurans. It's in there. They teach you about it. This is what they mean by your transforming into a glorified body. A new heaven on earth. This is what it all means. The atmosphere, everything around you is changing. There's a lot of additional energy right now that is in the atmosphere, and our bodies are unable to absorb it properly. This is the reason why we have to give up 7 neurons and keep 6 protons on one side and 6 electrons on the other. The counterbalance. The reason why we have to restore our relationship with our women, and our women have to restore the relationship with their men, and everybody needs to be put in their rightful place. There's an order to things. A lot of men don't like this order, and this is the reason why they're rebelling about it, and they rather stay in this system because this system benefits their power. They're able to be the man, be the chief, the big guy, because they don't want to be under no woman. Well, our system that we came out of was exactly like that. We have to make some changes, obviously, because whatever happened to have this thing crash down around us, I don't know exactly what it was, but whatever it was, we'll make some modifications to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But this is where we're going, and this is what's happening, and this is why, you know, you have those people called the indigo people, light beings, and all this other type stuff. So it's important. Our leadership is important. And I know all the people out there that are trying to do everything that they can to make sure that we're being okay. So I don't have any complaints about anything. But what I do have a complaint is somebody calling me a nigger, calling me a pimp, calling me pimping the people, telling me that my family's no good. My family don't hang out with me. You don't know anything about me. I don't talk about my family because I don't want my family blasted all over the internet. I'm not putting my pictures out there. That's demonic talk right there. You're trying to get somebody hurt. And that's how you begin to start knowing who or what people are. People better fix themselves inside. Because it's going to be either all of us, none of us. And that's the way we need to think. We all got to make it, or none of us is going to make it. And we all have to do something to bring forward a better environment for all of us and stop working to betterment this system. So what happens is that we're making a transition. So we still have to work on our jobs and everything else like that, but we have to always do something in order for us to be able to perpetuate the rebuild and the reestablish of the system that we came in, that we came out of, and that we're coming into. So some of us out there are speaking to people. Some of us out there are speaking to the children in the high school. Some of us are out there speaking to the kids in the colleges. Some of us are out there just speaking to the community. Some of us are trying to rise up and trying to get conferences together so that we can have training sessions for a whole bunch of people and get all kinds of spiritual healing and show people what things are all about all around this beautiful country of ours. We have people who are masters of farming and all that other type stuff. I'm all about government and construction. That's where I'm at. And we have to be about our business. Knowing who we are and not, again, giving up our identity to anyone else. So, and that's what these new things do, because these new things are a new way of saying, okay, they know they ain't indigenous. They know that they're not aboriginal to this world. They know that any aboriginal is always a carbon-based being. The original first people of this earth. Malcolm X told you, an aboriginal, an aborigine. You never find a white aborigine. You always find them dark-skinned. You always find them a carbon-based being. I don't even like saying the word dark, but they're carbon-based beings. And this ain't about racism. It's not about racism at all, hating white people and, getting up arms and starting all kinds of trouble. If you're starting all kinds of trouble and feeling trouble in you and feeling like you want to have a war, you need to really sit yourself down and do some meditation and get yourself back into the indigenous way. We need to concentrate all of our efforts on moving forward and improving the conditions of our people, instead of thinking about going to war and fantasizing about all this crazy stuff. No, there is no war. We're not at war. They're at war with us, and the war is still continuing. Our job is to end the war, get ourselves in the places to where we're out from underneath them. We have a right to self-determination. We're able to develop a governmental system to be able to get the healing and the necessary services to our people. That's what our job is. Then we can talk about what the job of the next generation is. But right now, this is what we have to do. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're moving forward in. I love each and every single one of you. May the universe bless you, and no matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening, always remember who and what you are. Always remember that you're not in hell. You're not staying in there. You're just passing through, and hell's just passing you by. Remember that you are a good, decent soul. You're filled with love inside yourself and worthy of being here. Remember that it took a whole group of cells that didn't exist before that came together to create you. Billions of them. Billions of them. So you're not here on this world and in this so-called earth for no reason. You're here for a reason. You're here for good reason. And no matter what pain you're going through right now, you will be able to get over it. So face every day with a smile, love in your heart. And with the meditation and visualization, and with it, you manifesting it and saying that I know it's possible. I know that I know that I know that I already have it. You are a manifestation being. That's what you are. That's the reason why you don't need mechanical things that are around you. They need the mechanical stuff because they can't manifest them. Their pineal gland calcified. Your pineal gland is alive. It looks like an eye inside, looking at this thing in front of it that looks just like a solar system. You are amazing. And this is the reason why there is nothing that you can conceive of that is impossible. It is only the limitation of your imagination that will cause you to fall short of where you want to go. Believe, for all things are not only possible because you know that they are. You're great people. Thank you. This is Rodney McLean on New Thunder for Dark Matter Radio. Thank you for all the support out there. Remember, like and subscribe. I probably said that in the beginning, right? But yeah, this is where we are. This is what's happening, right? This is what's happening. So, I tell you, it's late now. It's late. I don't even know what time it is. It's phone. Oh my God, it's 1:20 in the morning. I tell you, this has been bothering me all week. I'm gonna have some more stuff on here about. We have to get into this organ stuff, right? This organ snatching, right? They're snatching organs out of our people, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of this killing is going on over there in Chicago, New York, Baltimore, and a whole bunch of other places. Because of organ snatching. So we're going to have a really good show dealing with that. We're also going to have a show dealing with some of the other things that are going on around the world, such as these strange booms and noises and stuff like that. That's still going on. And this is one of the things that Dark Matter Radio is all about, really, right? Because it's about not only giving the ideas of who and what we are as beings of people and the direction that we should go, and having not complaints but solution, resulted-orientated radio. And that's what it's all about. We're also going to have a show, a really good show, about our economic system. What kind of economic system should we have, right? There's a lot of good brothers that did some good shows on that as well. But a lot of things, again, a lot of these shows are dealing with people that they're still in the system, right? So everything that I'm giving you deals with you being outside of the system, or getting you to a point as to where you can get outside of the system. So starting within the system and then maturing outside of it, right? Growing to the point as to where you don't need the system anymore, right? And so that's one of the things that the brother was talking about, that you don't have anything, and how you're going to have something if you ain't got nothing, right? So we all don't have nothing. We all don't have nothing because nobody has any right to hire anybody for a job or in an industry. We don't have any industries that we control ourselves. And even if we did have an industry that we control ourselves, they'll just do with the largest massacre and the first bombing on the U.S. soil done over there on Black Wall Street. They'll just kill us all, right? Rosewood and all that other type stuff, right? So this is where it's all about. This is where we're going, right? This is where we're going, and we're moving forward. Right, we're moving forward, but again, we have to make sure that we put the indigenous way within inside of our hearts. And what I mean by the indigenous way, again, you don't have that much judgment against people. You have more of a sympathetic feeling for people. right? More empathy. This is who we are as beings of people, right? You respect people, their ideas and stuff like that. Everybody has a right to say what they have a right to say, right? But they shouldn't downgrade their brothers and sisters on a public platform. Do that behind closed doors or at a meeting or something like that, where the outside world can't hear you, because what we have to do everything we can to build each other up. Everything out there, all the videos, a lot of the videos that I've done, except for maybe one, is building us up as a being of people. Building us up as a being of people. That's who we are. You know? That's who we are. You know, blessing our mounds. Teaching people how to bless our mounds. Teaching people how to do ceremonies. That's what it's all about. Right? Teaching people how to lead. Building our leaders up. Showing that we are great people. Right? Instead of always focusing on a negative aspect of anybody. Stay in that mode, stay in that tone. This is Ronnie McLean for Dark Matter Radio. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for support. See you out there on the road. See you out there on the road. So somewhere we'll be out there, and we'll talk to you. You have a great, 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 great day.